What if I told you that every single time you sit down to meditate and your mind goes completely haywire and you've got thoughts flying everywhere and to-do lists, that awkward thing that you said back in 2011, what if I told you that's not you failing at meditation, that is meditation? I know that probably sounds wrong, but stick with me. I'm Monique Rhodes. I've been teaching meditation for over 20 years, and my programs are used in more than 70 colleges and universities worldwide. And the number one thing people say to me is, Monique, I tried to meditate, but I can't do it. My mind just won't shut up. So today I'm going to dismantle that idea completely. And by the end of this, you're going to understand what meditation actually is, not the Instagram version. And I'm going to give you 4 practical techniques to work with so that you can work with your beautifully busy mind. Not against it, with it. And I also want to tell you about something that happened to me in India that completely changed the way I teach. But I'll get to that. Okay, let's start with this. Your mind is busy. It jumps from thought to thought. You sit down, you close your eyes, you try to focus on your breath, and within about 4 seconds, your brain is completely off, planning dinner, replaying a conversation, worrying about Thursday. Here's what I need you to know. That is completely, utterly, 100% normal. So there was a Harvard study that tracked over 2,000 people throughout their day. It pinged them at random moments to ask them what they were thinking about. And what they found in that study was that people's minds were wandering 47% of the time. So nearly half of their waking life. So when you sit down to meditate and your mind wanders, you're not doing it wrong. You're being a human being. Your brain's job is to think, and that's what it does. So it's a little bit like getting mad at your heart for beating. And here's the thing. This is really important. If you've been beating yourself up about meditating and you find it difficult because your mind's too busy, your brain has something called the default mode network. So it's basically your brain's screensaver. And whenever you're not focused on a specific task, this network fires up and it does what it does best. It thinks, it wanders, it plans, it remembers. So when you close your eyes and your mind starts chattering, that's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. And meditation isn't about shutting that down. So can we be honest for a second? The way that meditation is marketed actually drives me a little bit crazy. It's this idea of someone in perfect lotus position, a single candle, their eyes gently closed, looking like they've achieved total inner peace, and also maybe just came back from a really good spa. That's not meditation. That's a stock photo. So here's what meditation actually is. You notice that your mind has wandered and you bring it back. That's it. That's the whole thing. Not the sitting still part, not the silence part, the moment where you go, oh, I was thinking about something, let me come back. That is the rep. That is the bicep curl. That is where the change happens. So every time your mind wanders and you notice it, you've just meditated. The wandering isn't the failure. The noticing is the success. So I say this to my college and university students all the time. A session where your mind wandered 50 times and you brought it back 50 times, that was a great session. You just did 50 reps. A session where your mind was totally blank, you might have just fallen asleep. I want to tell you something because I think it matters here. When I was 19, I tried to take my own life. I had a really difficult time and things at home were tough. But by the time I hit my teenage years, my emotions were all over the place. So I was in a lot of pain and I didn't know how to deal with what was going on in my mind. I didn't have the tools. Nobody had taught me there was another way to relate to all of that noise up there. And I ended up in a hospital bed. While I was lying there, I remember thinking, why is it that some people just seem to be happy? Like, is it luck? Is it something they're born with? is it there's something that they know that I don't know? And that question sent me on a journey that lasted for decades. I traveled the world with everything I owned in a single bag for a 13-year stretch. For 4 years, I rode a motorcycle all over India, from the Himalayas in the north all the way down to the southern tip. I lived in the Himalayas, and I studied with extraordinary teachers. I was searching for an answer, and here's what I found. Happiness, like meditation, is a skill. It's not a personality trait. It's not something you either have or you don't have. It's something you train. And the training ground, it's your mind. That busy, noisy, chaotic mind of yours is actually the raw material. It's not the obstacle. It's the whole point. Now, I mentioned India. Here's the story I want to tell you. When I was traveling through India, I wasn't teaching anyone anything. I was just a person trying to figure out her own life. But at one point, a group of young Western women I met, they kept asking me about meditation. Can you teach us? Can you teach us? And I thought to myself, I'm not a teacher. I have no idea how to teach this. But they were persistent. So one morning I sat down with them and I taught them what I always say was probably the worst meditation class in the history of meditation. And the next morning they showed up again with friends. And that kept happening. And within a short time I was teaching 50 people a day. And here's what hit me. Almost every single one of them said the same thing at the start. I can't do this. My mind is too busy. Sound familiar? That experience eventually became the 10-minute mind, which is used everywhere. It's used in the 70 colleges and universities around the world. It's used by loads of corporations. And I designed it specifically for people who think they can't meditate. Because here's what I know to be true after all these years. If you have a busy mind, you can meditate. Not in spite of it, because of it. All right, let's get practical. Let's talk about 4 techniques you can start using today to work with a busy mind. Aside from going and signing up for the 10-minute mind, which you should do. Number 1, I call this the puppy method. All right, imagine you've just brought home a brand new puppy and you put that puppy on its bed and you say, stay. What happens? The puppy gets off and wanders off. Does it make you angry? Do you yell at the puppy? Do you think, this puppy's broken and I need to return it? Of course you don't. You just gently pick it up. You put it back on the bed and you say, stay again. And when it wanders off, and it will, you just bring it back. You bring it back with kindness. You bring it back with patience. Your mind is the puppy. So when you're meditating and you notice your mind has wandered off to your grocery list or your inbox, you don't scold yourself. You don't think, I'm terrible at this. You just gently bring your attention back to whatever it was that you were focusing on. Your breath, a sound, a sensation in your body. That gentle return is the practice. And here's what's beautiful about this. Over time, the puppy learns, not because you forced it, because you were consistent and kind. Your mind works the same way. All right, number 2, name it to tame it. This one's simple, but it's surprisingly powerful. When you notice a thought pulling you away, you just quietly label it. Not with a long story, just a word. All right? So maybe a thought comes about your work and you quietly note planning, or a memory floats up, remembering, or you're worrying about something, worrying. So what you're doing is creating a tiny bit of space between you and the thought. So instead of being swept up by the river of thinking, you're standing on the bank watching it go by. So you're not pushing the thoughts away, you're just not climbing into the boat with them. This gives you something to do with the thoughts instead of fighting them. And here's what's interesting. The research shows that when you label an emotion or a thought, you actually reduce activity in your amygdala. That's your brain's alarm system. So you calm your nervous system just by naming what's happening. All right, number 3, the anchor shift. So most people learn to meditate by focusing on their breath, and for some people that works great. But here's a secret. For a lot of people, especially people with busy minds, the breath is actually a boring anchor. And when your anchor is boring, your mind wanders more. So try this. Instead of the breath, choose an anchor that gives your mind more to work with. All right? So in the 10-minute mind, we have music you can listen to. You just let that music wash over you. Or you might focus on the feeling in your hands, the tingling, the warmth, the weight of them resting on your legs. Or you might focus on the sensation of your whole body sitting in the chair, like the pressure against your back, the weight of you being held. So give your mind something interesting enough to stay with. If the breath doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean you're bad at meditation. It means you need a different anchor. Technique number 4, this is the one I really want you to try. I call it the 10-minute agreement. Here's what happens when most people try to meditate. They sit down with this vague idea that they should go for 20 minutes, an hour, however long that they believe it takes to get enlightened. All right? 2 minutes in, their mind goes bananas and they quit. So instead, make a deal with yourself. 10 minutes, that's it. Do the 10-minute mind. No matter what happens, you stay. Your mind wanders 1,000 times, you stay. It feels boring, you stay. 10 minutes. You can do anything for 10 minutes. So this is the principle behind the 10-minute mind, my meditation program that I mentioned earlier. I designed it around this idea that consistency beats duration every single time. You don't need to meditate for an hour to change your life. You need to meditate for 10 minutes and actually do it regularly. If you want to try it, there's a free 10-day trial. I'll put the link in the description. It's guided, it's daily, and it was built for exactly the kind of person listening to this or watching this right now. So the person who thinks their mind is too busy, trust me, I built it for you. Now, I want to touch on something briefly because I think it helps to know that this isn't just something I'm saying. This is something your brain actually does. So researchers at Harvard did brain scans on people before and after an 8-week meditation program. What they found was remarkable. Increased gray matter in the hippocampus, which handles learning and memory, and decreased gray matter in the amygdala, the brain stress center. And the participants were only meditating about 27 minutes a day. So your brain has this quality called neuroplasticity. It physically reshapes itself based on what you repeatedly do. Meditation takes advantage of that. You're literally training your brain to be less reactive and calmer, not by force, but by repetition. So it's like a path through the forest. The first time you walk it, you're pushing through brush. Walk it every day, becomes a trail. Walk it for weeks, becomes a clear path. That's what 10 minutes a day does to the neural pathways in your brain. Okay, I want to leave you with something. If you take one thing from this, let it be this. You're not bad at meditation. So the idea you're supposed to have a silent mind is a myth that has stopped millions of people from accessing something that could genuinely change their lives. The busier your mind, the more material you've got to work with. So every thought that arises is another chance to practice noticing, practice returning. That is the whole game. So I went from lying in a hospital bed at 19, completely overwhelmed by my own mind, to teaching meditation at universities and colleges around the world, Fortune 500 companies, to working on a music project with the Dalai Lama, to being nominated for the New Zealander of the Year. Not because I learned to stop thinking, but because I learned to relate to my thinking differently. I was having lunch with a friend of mine the other day. She calls it the unfair advantage, and I think that's what it is. And you can do the same thing, starting today, starting with 10 minutes. So if this was helpful, I'd love you to subscribe, all right? I make these regularly, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who thinks they can't meditate, please send them this to them. They probably need to hear this more than anyone. Your mind isn't broken. It's brilliant, and it's waiting for you to start working with it instead of against it. I hope this has been helpful. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.